Hi everyone, this is Vanessa James to help with your Zoom settings for when you're hosting your students. So a few things that I learned. If you go right there to your account, oops, and then you come over to this left side and go to settings. There's a bunch of different settings that you can have. I mean, there's like 50 things, but a few that I've noticed that helped for me was having a waiting room and having different things. So I'm just going to kind of go through and show you what I have so far. I like to change this one for the students. They don't have to show themselves is how it was, but I like to change it to show them because I want my students to not be embarrassed to have their video on, and I want them looking at me and I can look at them to make sure that they're engaged. I don't let them join before I join because essentially they could be there 30 minutes before talking and I would have no idea. So I like to turn that off. Passwords and everything, you don't need that. I have this set to automatically mute the participants upon entry. So this is going to allow them to be muted and they have to unmute themselves. But during the meeting, you still have the option to mute all and then they cannot unmute themselves. But when they come into it, they're muted. This is another thing that I took off, private chat. So allowing the students to message each other. I took that off because I don't want them to be distracted. But however, they can send a message to everyone to see. And this helps for the students to post questions and things when they're muted. If they do ask a question though, I unmute them. That way they and the other students can listen. So this button, I haven't tried it yet, but it says that you can put an attendee on hold. So temporarily remove them. So if there's a student that you need to remove for whatever reason, you can do that with that. And screen sharing. So who can share? Host only, not all participants. None of the students should really be sharing their screen at that time. So I have host only. This one was a tricky one right here. I didn't realize that when I shared my screen, students could highlight and draw onto the screen that I was sharing, and then everybody else could see what they're highlighting and drawing. And so I turned these two things off. They cannot annotate and they cannot use a whiteboard on what I have shared with them. Now, if you want to, after you've established the rules and talked to them about it, then you can re-enable it and tell them about it. But I definitely don't want them writing notes to each other or anything like that while I'm teaching. And then this one, remote control, you also want that off. When I share my screen, I don't want the students to be able to click on my end on my iPad and be able to do anything. So students that I've kicked out, they cannot rejoin. That's what that is. None of this stuff really matters. The virtual background. So allow users to replace their background. I haven't decided if I want to turn this on or not. Some of the students have, just decent ones, and then some of them have ones that are distracting. So for now, I've decided to turn it off. And as you can see, there's so many settings. Attention tracking. So when I share my screen and I'm talking, I don't typically see the faces of all my students. And so this lets me know if the student is not paying attention or doesn't have the Zoom in front of them. This one's an important one, I think, the waiting room. So the attendees can't join the meeting until I admit them in. So in the waiting room, let's say that they log in 10 minutes or so before the meeting, instead of being able to all see each other and talk about who knows what, they have to wait pretty much in their own waiting room until I come in and invite them all into the meeting. This helps when attendees join meeting before host. I like having this activated because my code that I sent with them is my personal Zoom code, so it's always open essentially. And so if somebody joins it, I'm not in there. And so I've had parents confused. For example, my meeting was from 1 to 1:30 and they're trying to get on at 3. And so it'll send me a notification to my email saying you have an attendee at 3, so that when the parent calls me and says, how come you weren't at tutoring? Then I know that it's because they were trying to get on at 3 and tutoring was from 1 to 1:30. So I like to be notified when they join, whether it's before or after. And then there's even more settings that you can change. But that's all that I changed so far. I hope that helps.